WeAreProud.com presents Color Crossroads, a conversation on diversity and inclusion. Now, here are your hosts, Renee Skinner and Tavarius Haywood.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Color Crossroads. I'm Renee Skinner.
And I'm Tavarius Haywood. And we just wrapped up candid conversations where we focus on the difference between equity and equality and how both can lead to totally different outcomes for marginalized people.
That's right. And the term equity refers to fairness and justice and is distinguished from equality, whereas equality means providing the same to all. Equity means recognizing that we do not all start from the same place and must acknowledge and make adjustments to imbalances.
Yeah, we spoke to Dr. Andrew Perry on how structural inequality inhibits a community, and he talked about the effects of redlining. Food deserts, another issue people in North Baton Rouge deal with daily. Access to fresh food continue to plague this mostly black part of town. Chris Tyson talked to us about the housing affordability and the Federal Housing Act that discriminated against people of color.
Also, I sat down with Southern University professor Dr. Sharice Nelson, who recently penned a book entitled Congressional Black Caucus, 50 Years Fighting for Equality. She explained the importance of understanding black citizenship. Starting from humble beginnings with only 13 students, Southern University Law Center Chancellor John Pierre discussed how the program is celebrating 75 years of success. Well, now once you've got equity and equality, you need to have diversity and inclusion a part of the conversation. And joining us to talk all about that and about Brac's Diversity and Inclusion Council is the manager himself, Daryl L. Johnson Jr. So glad you're with us, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And then to the left of us, we have economic research and policy analyst Jake Polanski. We're so glad you're with us too, sir.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. All right. And we've got our first question ready to go. We want to know, what is the Brac Diversity and Inclusion Council? And of course, why was it created, Mr. Johnson?
Certainly. So Brac's Diversity and Inclusion Council was created in 2015, really to provide a platform for our members to really talk about the issues that happen within the region itself to help build economic inclusion across the region of the capital region in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Brac focuses on economic growth for individuals. Explain why this is such an important tool right now.
Certainly. Well, understanding that you have to have a healthy community as well as to have a healthy business. They work and correlate together, right? So we understand that the data shows that really being intentional as it pertains to individual growth as well as business growth will propel a particular region forward.
And obviously, Brac has done some significant research on the needs of the community. And what are the contributing factors of economic instability in our community, I should say?
So when we look at educational opportunity, when we look at poverty across the board, educational attainment, et cetera, these are things that really go into play when we talk about investing in diversity and inclusion within our region to make opportunity for all.
Why is it so important for businesses to invest in a culture of diversity and inclusion?
So diversity and inclusion is great for business. One, having diversity of thought by way of having a plethora of individuals at the table to really discuss various outputs in life, various outlooks on life rather, really helps to propel a business forward by being more than one-dimensional in their thinking.
Awesome. And we also want to know, Brac has created, a business case for diversity and inclusion. What are the key elements of this case, would you say?
I would say the key elements of the business case is essentially providing for opportunity for all. All right. So understanding that folks come from different walks of life. So having a diverse perspective on what equity and inclusion looks like. Primarily within a region or within a business really helps to build that particular business moving forward.
Absolutely. And what are some of the initiatives Brac has that relates to diversity and inclusion? You guys do a lot of work on the ground. Talk about those initiatives and why they are so important.
Certainly. I'll start with access to opportunity. So Brac, in partnership with the Mayor's Office, Sharon Western Broome Office, as well as EBR Fair Share Metro Morphosis, has created the Baton Rouge Procurement Opportunity Partnership, BRPOP for short. So within this particular partnership, we provide access to opportunities, potential contract opportunities with 26 major corporations within the region. So these corporations get together to really talk about best practices in supplier diversity, in addition to matchmaking qualified and vetted small businesses to opportunities with our private sector and public sector folks. So we mentioned access to opportunities, but we also have access to capital. Brac has partnered with True Fund Financial Services on a Economic Development Administration loan-supported revolving loan fund, which is a $1.1 million fund which helps bridge the gap primarily for minority-owned businesses who struggle with access to capital. In addition to that, we will be unveiling the additional programmatic support programs that we'll launch this year as a part of our new 5-year strategic plan. More to learn about that on March 16th.
Well, let's talk about the data. Brac conducted benchmark exercises in several different categories. For those of you who are at home, Brac compared Baton Rouge to 39 metropolitan cities within a 1,000-mile radius. The cities had a range from 400,000 to 2 million people in population as of 2018. We're talking about places like Indianapolis, Beaumont, my hometown, Memphis, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Little Rock, Shreveport, and Jackson, Mississippi, just to name a few. You should see them on your screen right now. Indianapolis was the most populous region included in the analysis. Beaumont was the smallest region in population. At the time of the analysis was done in 2018, the population of Baton Rouge area approached 830,000. Among benchmark regions, the Baton Rouge area ranked 14th in total population. Before we dive into the data, how did Breck conduct this research to get the numbers?
Certainly. So this research was conducted in partnership with Ernst & Young. We wanted to bring in an outside consultant to really give us an unbiased look at what our current state of the region looks like in preparation for our new strategic plan, which we will be unveiling on March 16th.
So we're going to put the data up on slides just in a few minutes. Jake, can you explain to us what we're seeing and how these numbers that were the latest in this report, which was conducted in 2018, and we'll talk a little about what those numbers were and if there has been any improvement since then.
Sure. So the slide that you're looking at, you should be looking at a slide that's titled Employment Growth. And what this slide looks at is this compares Baton Rouge against its 39 peer metros in terms of employment growth. And a couple things that's important to know before we kind of jump into these statistics. These data are for the years 2013 to 2018, and as we know, it's 2022, so some of these data may be a little outdated, and because of the COVID pandemic, data collection by the U.S. Census Bureau has been a little slow. So as of now, the most updated data we have is for 2019, and we have a couple things with 2020 data as well. But I'm going to be able to provide some additional statistics for 2019 as well. But going back to this slide, so this one is for employment growth, and this shows that between 2013 and 2018, Baton Rouge experienced about 4.5% employment growth. And what this slide notes is that it's concentrated in a couple specific industry sectors, things like construction, things like manufacturing, things like transportation and warehousing. And these are important industry clusters for the Baton Rouge area. These provide typically high, good paying jobs, and they're industries that are important for our economy. And I went back and looked at some additional data yesterday, and what I was able to find from the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually was a little surprising. And it was looking at data from 2011 to 2021. And what that data showed us is that construction grew at 16%, which is great. Manufacturing also grew at about 16%, which is great. Education and health services also grew at about 11.5%, which is great. But more than all of these, professional services actually grew by 16.4%, more than these other industries. And professional services are going to be your firms like lawyers, like accountants, like management consultants. So these are typically high, good-paying jobs that require typically a bachelor's degree or more to get. These types of people who take these positions are vital to Baton Rouge's economy. So we really have a diverse economy right now, and I don't think that 4.5% displays the whole thing.
Talk a little bit about people working in poverty.
Sure. So with people working in poverty, so if you look at the slide on the screen, so what this statistic is showing us is that about 6.6% of people in Baton Rouge who worked for at least 6 months, I think the year is 2018 for this, about 6.6% of those people live in poverty, which is obviously an issue because if you're working, ideally that job should pay you enough so that you don't have to live in poverty. So like I said, that's obviously an issue, and there are some things that we may be looking at that may be kind of changing this narrative a bit. right now we are currently experiencing a strong demand for labor in the market. And what I mean by that is in December of 2021, there were 13,000 unemployed people throughout Baton Rouge, but there were 28,000 job postings. So that shows the significant demand for workforce that our economy is currently going through. So this gives workers a lot of leverage when they're looking for a new job and potentially trying to up their wage. For May of 2020, the median hourly wage in Baton Rouge was $19.24 an hour, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic, before we saw this very strong growth for labor, or strong demand for labor, excuse me. So I'm excited for this 2021 data to come out, because I'm hoping that as this 2021 data is going to show, we're going to reduce this number of people working in poverty, because we're going to see these wages rise.
Now, what about affordable housing? I mean, I would be remiss if the complaint about how the cost of living is just so enormous didn't appear in every conversation that I've had with friends on the regular. So what did your data show about affordability in terms of housing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you mentioned, affordable housing, I think, kind of affects us all now. And if you're looking at the screen, it's a pretty worrisome statistic if you look not only at Baton Rouge, but if you look at all of our comparison regions. I think the best comparison region, it shows 28% there, and I'm going to talk about that Baton Rouge figure. So the Baton Rouge figure is 36.8%. So what that number means, that means that 36.8% of people across the metro, the Baton Rouge metro, are considered cost burden. And what cost burden means, that means that you're spending 30% or more of your income on your housing, whether you are a homeowner with a mortgage or a renter. So that's a significant fraction of your income that's going to housing. And like I said, we can see the best peer metro up here, still more than a quarter of their population is cost burden for their housing, which is a problem. And there was a report out just last week that showed that median rents in the 50 largest metros rose 19.5% from December 2020 to December 2021. That's a significant height in rents. And I want you to compare that nearly 20% figure to Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, from December 2020 to 2021, rents for a one-bedroom rose about 5%. And rents for a two-bedroom rose about 4.2%. So those are still high numbers, but they're not quite the 19.5% that we're seeing across the nation. So I think housing is going to become a little bit more affordable in Baton Rouge as we get these new data compared to other regions, but that shouldn't belittle how significant of an issue this is, absolutely.
Oh yeah, and then of course there's poverty and racial disparity. Did any of your research highlight these factors at all into the numbers or? Absolutely,
and we don't have extremely updated statistics on poverty and racial disparities, but it's still an issue. And what you're looking at on the screen right now, that number should be 2.3, I believe. So what that number means, and this statistic as well as the next few are going to be benchmarked against white people, and we're going to see why that's important. So what that 2.3 means is that if you are not white, you are making 2.3 times as less as if you are white. So put another way, white individuals make 2.3 times as much as non-white individuals, which is obviously an issue. And that is a factor or a result of a lot of these kind of systemic issues that we've talked about and that Brac is working to help fix in Baton Rouge.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit of how educational attainment plays a factor in all of this.
Sure. So educational attainment is a significant issue. So the slide that you're looking at should show a figure of 1.7. And what that 1.7 means is that if you're a white person, a white individual in Baton Rouge, you are 1.7 times as likely to have a college degree. And when I say college degree, I mean bachelor's or higher. So that's almost 2 times, and that's a significant number. And I don't think that there's any quick short-term solution to kind of fix this, but there are some things that Brac is advocating on behalf of that I think will help kind of alleviate this educational attainment gap that we're looking at. One of those initiatives is ensuring that we have quality funding and long-term dedicated funding for early childhood education. Numerous studies have shown that early childhood education is vital for a student's long-term academic career, and right now not every student in Baton Rouge has access to a quality pre-kindergarten program. So that's one initiative on the pre-K front, and if you go to the other side of that, to high school, that's why we think it's important that as many high school students in Baton Rouge have the opportunity to graduate with a certificate or an associate's degree even, because these are going to be tangible things that students can use to help help advance their own educational outcomes and enhance their own income outcomes, and also help reduce this gap that we're seeing right here.
Talk a little bit about the racial diversity mix up in all of this as well.
Sure. So in racial diversity and management, you should be looking at that slide on the screen right now. So what that number is showing, you should see 51%. And what that means is that if you are not white in Baton Rouge, you're about half as likely to be a manager as if you are white, which is obviously a significant issue when about, I think it's 35% of the entire metro is African American, and only about 53% of the metro is white. So I mean, these are pretty astonishing numbers, but I think we have some updated numbers that if you look at kind of the next component of this, which is women in management, I think that we have some updated figures on this that show that, you know, we're not doing as well as we should be, but compared to some of our peer metros up there, we may not be doing as bad as you might think. With some updated numbers for 2019 and 2020, we saw that about 44% of managerial positions in the metro were occupied by women, which is obviously, when we have about a 50-50 split, that's not what we want to be, but it's still better than a couple of the peer metros that we are looking at, and it's an improvement over these numbers that you're seeing on your screen.
Well, what about earnings based on gender? This is another category where women are underprivileged, unfortunately, but has any of that changed? Is there growth in that category at all? Tell us something good.
Absolutely. Well, I'll try to tell you something good.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but if you're looking at the screen, as you can see, compared to our peer metros, we do rank in the bottom quarter when you stack up earnings by gender. So what this statistic is telling us is that women's median earnings is about 60% that of men's median earnings. And you know, that could be due to a couple things. You know, we just talked about women in management and how women occupy managerial positions at lower rates. Managerial positions typically pay more, so it's going to be an issue when women can't occupy those positions. So that's going to influence these statistics a little bit. Another thing that's going to influence these statistics are just kind of some societal and environmental factors. And what I mean by that is, for example, women work part-time jobs. We'll have women work part-time jobs at higher rates than of men who work. Of all men who worked in 2019 in Baton Rouge, about 25 or 26% of them worked at a part-time job, whereas of all women who worked, about 38% of them worked a part-time job. And as we know, this is due to circumstances that are, you know, life circumstances. Sometimes women just have to be able to work a part-time job so that they can handle other things that are going on in their life. And kids, things like that. So these statistics that you're seeing are partially influenced by that. So I think they really speak to the fact that we need to continue to work to make sure that we're including women in the workforce and that they have the same opportunities that men do.
And speaking of that, what resources does Brac have in order to help these businesses be more diverse and inclusive?
Certainly. So we partner with the Dialogue on Race Louisiana for companies who are really interested in having a conversation about race, really understanding some of the barriers to be able to kind of talk through what that looks like within their particular company so they can build a pathway forward. In addition to that, feel free to reach out to myself by way of my email address. I'm not certain if it'll go on the screen at all, but just want to mention that. But feel free to reach out to myself if you have any questions about diversity and inclusion and looking to impact that within your particular businesses or organizations.
I just have one more thing. Is there any place where we can find the data? Will you be posting the most recent findings soon? Is there any place where we can find some of the data that you've presented for us tonight? Sure.
So if you go to the brac.org website, you'll be able to find the same slides that we talked through today. So you can find those slides on there. Also, we are unveiling the beginning of our 5-year strategic plan in March, which we are very excited about. And as a part of that initiative, we will be releasing a public dashboard on Brac's website where you'll be able to go through and look at how we're doing on 60+ metrics, some of the ones that we talked about today as well as others that we didn't get to discuss, that will allow you to kind of get a better picture of where Baton Rouge is as far as diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely.
Got to thank y'all so much for the work that y'all doing, and thank y'all so much for joining us today and sharing this information about Brac's Diversity and Inclusion Council. More information on Chamber and how you can join, or if you want to take a look at the full webinar on disparity data, you can find that under the Candid Conversations tab on our website.
That's right. And if you missed any part of tonight's episode of Candid Conversations or Color Crossroads, you can find the full replay right here on brproud.com. Have a good night.